So finally, the last thing that I want to talk about, because obviously I could go on for like days and bore everyone to death, but this pedal is actually, to me, is the kind of the jewel of all of them, just because I don't know that anyone's actually really thought of this particular idea. But so what this is it's called the X Blender, and what it does is it gives you a nice clean signal to your amplifier, first of all, because so what's happening is my bass is running straight into this pedal, into the input, and then from the output it's going straight back to the amplifier. So I've got basically just two wires connecting me with my amplifier. You with me so far? So you just got a nice clean signal chain, not a bunch of wires, not a bunch of sound going on. So then there's on top of it these two inputs and outputs that are above the actual input and output that you use for your guitar to go to your amplifier is an effects loop, essentially. So you've got a send and a return. So I've got all these pedals outside of my guitar signal running through the send and the return. And so all these pedals, and they're running through this separately from my guitar signal, so it's nice and clean. Here's where it gets really cool and interesting to me. There's two settings, which is just, obviously there's three settings really. There's off, which is just, and which is another thing I want to talk about real quick in a minute. But when it's off, it sounds just like I'm plugged straight into my amp. It's not doing anything to my tone, which is a real important thing that I'll mention again. But then, so when you have both sides on, basically what you've got is your signal, which is still going through the input and output straight to your signal. That signal of your pure guitar tone is still happening. It's going to the amplifier, and so you've got that as your core tone. And then what happens is the effects are layered on top of that signal. So you've got this blend of your actual guitar tone and then blending in the signal, right? And then you can control with this big knob, and I love it because you can actually do it with your foot while you're playing. So you could actually kind of have sort of a real time. Hear that? You can blend in the amount of the effect into your signal. So that's just a wonderful thing. And then if you, let's make sure I remember I think it's, so when you have just the red pedal on, then it's just like essentially what it is that then you have your signal is going through all your pedals just the way it normally would if you just had your pedals set up and you're just running through them. So, and which is actually yet another sound, right? So you get, it's a slight variation, but what it is then you just get your purely affected tone, which is something that you want sometimes, I mean, you might have certain settings where you just want to have just the affected tone without that clean thing. And I kind of leaned towards always having a little bit of my signal in there, but then sometimes, especially if I was like doing a kind of an extreme. So this is kind of the synth wah tone. No, this is kind of the synth wah tone, and what it is I'm just purely the effect. And this knob doesn't do anything when you're just in this mode. Woo! That's bad. So so that's just total, like going through the effect, and then, or you can dial it in like that. So I'll go back to that same thing, and it's just, I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear it here in the room. I can hear my actual bass tone coming through too, So that, and then you can control with this big knob right here in the middle, just exactly how it works. So I think this pedal is radical. I think that everyone should go out and buy me one, and maybe yourself one too. But be sure and get me one, won't you? So it's just a great pedal, and because it's useful, and it does a couple of things by itself. There's a little bit of a boost that it does, a little bit of a boost, and then there's a 3-band EQ, because especially if you got a hodgepodge of pedals like all of us do. There's some pedals that they sound really cool, but they like rob your bass, or flatten out your treble, or whatever they happen to do. Well, you can kind of compensate. So there's a bass, mid, and treble controls on here, and then there's a phase thing, which honestly I haven't figured out exactly how that plays into everything yet. And it might have to do with how pedals interact with each other. So anyway, that's kind of a setup that I've been messing with from these EWS and Xotic pedals, and I think they're radical. I think they're revolutionary, and the reason that they're radical and revolutionary is because they're all about what we really need, which is good tone. Tone. The longer I play, and I've been playing a long time, to me, tone is even better than playing the right notes. It's just having a good tone. So I dig these pedals, and they're extremely well made, and I'm pleased to introduce them to you today. I played with Chris Duarte, who's also, as I mentioned before, an artist, and we played for many years together, and all over the world, and all over the United States, and all over Canada, and I've seen him go through hundreds of pedals, and stomp them to death and kill them and throw them out because they didn't sound great, and just the whole misery that we all go through with our pedals, trying to find the right thing. But it's like I said, just as it is with me, with him it's mostly about tone. And all the times that all the years and years that I played with him, there's only one time where, and it was on this last tour that I did with him, where he kind of walked up to me and was like holding a pedal, like, "Oh, this is a really cool pedal." I mean, he's not, he'll have the pedals and he'll just play them, but he's never like sort of singled them out. And then he, the fact that he took the trouble to introduce me to these guys, is a real ringing endorsement just to the quality and to the usefulness of them. So anyway, that's about what I've got, I think, for these beautiful Xotic and EWS pedals, and I hope you'll check them out.